It was supposed to be just another busy afternoon at the city bus terminal. People came and went, caught in their daily routines, eyes glued to their phones, minds lost in their own worlds. No one paid much attention to the boy sitting quietly near the corner, a young black teenager, no more than 17, in a worn-out wheelchair. His clothes were clean but faded, his backpack resting on his lap like it held everything he owned. His name was Malik. Malik had learned how to move through life without expecting much from anyone. He had grown used to the long stares, the awkward silences, and the moments when people pretended not to see him at all. But today, he noticed something different. A pregnant woman, clearly exhausted, was struggling to stand near the bus stop bench. No one offered her a seat. People glanced at her then looked away, too busy or too indifferent to care. Malik didn't think twice. Using his arms, he pushed himself forward and gently called out to her. "Ma'am, you can sit here," he said with a kind smile, motioning to the only space next to the bench. He shifted himself slightly so she could lean and rest. She hesitated at first, maybe surprised by the offer, but then smiled warmly and sat down. "Thank you," she said, clearly relieved. Malik simply nodded. People nearby noticed. A few even smiled, but no one said anything more. The woman, still catching her breath, looked over at Malik. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. Malik shrugged. "It's no big deal." But before the quiet moment could settle, a loud voice sliced through the air. "Hey, you can't just roll around wherever you want like you own the place." The words were sharp, disrespectful, and they came from a police officer who had just arrived on the scene. Officer Trent was tall, loud, and clearly used to being in control. His gaze landed on Malik with a mix of suspicion and arrogance. "You causing trouble here, kid?" he asked, walking closer with slow, intimidating steps. Malik looked up, confused.
"No, sir.
"I was just helping." "I don't care what you were doing," the officer snapped, interrupting him. "You don't belong here if you're going to block the walkway." The woman tried to speak up. "He wasn't blocking anything. He actually helped." "I didn't ask you, ma'am," the officer said, cutting her off too. People began to stare. A few pulled out their phones, but no one stepped in. Malik's face turned pale. His hands tightened on his wheels. He wasn't new to being judged, but this was different. The officer was mocking him, making comments under his breath about kids these days playing hero and acting out to get attention. But Malik stayed calm. He didn't argue. He didn't shout. He just sat there, breathing slowly, quietly taking it, because that's what life had taught him to do. Until a sleek black SUV pulled up right at the curb. The door swung open, and a man in a sharp black suit stepped out, tall, calm, and with a presence that made people move without being asked. He looked around, spotted Malik, then turned his eyes to Officer Trent. His voice was deep and steady. "Is there a problem here, officer?" Trent straightened, clearly thrown off. "Who are you?" The man pulled out a badge without saying another word. It gleamed in the sunlight. "FBI. I'm his father." The crowd gasped. Even the officer took a step back. Malik's face softened with relief, just slightly. But the tension didn't break. The woman who had taken the seat looked from Malik to the suited man, eyes wide. Then, almost nervously, she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small folded note. She handed it to Malik with trembling hands. He looked down, confused. Slowly, he opened the note. What was written inside would change everything. But just as he began to read, the sound of a second siren echoed in the distance, drawing closer. Malik held the note in his hands like it was something fragile, something sacred. His eyes scanned the handwriting slowly, his lips moving just a little as he read. The woman watched him carefully, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She looked nervous, almost regretful, like maybe she hadn't expected this moment to arrive so soon, or maybe she hadn't expected to go through with it at all. The FBI agent, still standing tall beside Malik, turned his eyes toward her. His expression was unreadable, but his silence spoke volumes. He hadn't said anything else after revealing who he was. He just stood there, one hand in his pocket, the other resting near his belt. The way he carried himself made it clear, he wasn't just a father. He was trained, disciplined, watchful. Malik looked up from the note, his brows drawn close. Is this real? He asked the woman. His voice was quiet, like he was trying not to let it crack. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked down at her lap. Yes, she whispered after a moment. It's real. Before anything else could be said, the second siren grew louder, and a marked police car pulled into the terminal's side entrance. Another officer stepped out, this one older, calmer. He had a clipboard in one hand, a radio in the other. He scanned the crowd, spotted the situation immediately, and walked over briskly. Trent, he said in a firm tone. What's going on here? Officer Trent straightened again, clearly rattled now. There was some confusion. This young man was causing a little disturbance, blocking the pathway. I was addressing it. The older officer glanced at Malik, then at the pregnant woman, then finally at the man in the black suit. And this is? The agent stepped forward, calmly pulling out his badge again. Agent Marcus Hill. I'm with the Bureau. This is my son. And from what I see, he wasn't causing anything. He was helping. A long pause followed. The crowd was still there, quieter now but not leaving. People were filming, whispering. The air was tight with unspoken thoughts. All right, the senior officer said, nodding slowly. Let's step aside and talk. I'm not going anywhere, Agent Hill said, his voice calm but unshakable. Not until I understand what exactly happened here, and why my son was being singled out. Malik looked between the adults, unsure if he should say anything. His heart was racing. Not because of the confrontation he was used to being ignored or worse, but because of the note. His fingers still gripped the small piece of paper tightly. It wasn't long, just a few lines written in rushed, shaky pen. But those lines changed everything. You don't know me, but I knew your mother. She saved my life once. I've been looking for her family ever since. If you're reading this, I think you deserve to know the truth. Please don't ignore this. There's more. Malik didn't understand it. His mother had passed away when he was only 8. He remembered her smile, her soft voice, and how she'd always made things feel okay even when they weren't. But he had no idea what this woman was talking about. What kind of truth? And what did she mean by there's more? Agent Hill noticed the look on his son's face and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. You all right? Malik nodded slowly. She gave me this. He passed the note up to his father. Agent Hill read it silently, his jaw tightening just slightly. His eyes flicked back to the woman. What exactly do you know about my wife? He asked, voice controlled but direct. The woman looked around nervously, suddenly aware that all eyes were on her. Not here, she said softly. Please. This isn't something I can explain like this. Malik felt a wave of confusion and fear rising in his chest. So much had happened in just a few minutes. The humiliation, the arrival of his dad, the note, and now this mysterious claim about his mother. Everything felt too fast, too sharp, like the ground could fall out from under him at any second. The senior officer tried to move the situation along. Let's all take this inside. Away from the crowd. Let things cool down. Agent Hill looked to Malik, waiting for his nod. Malik agreed quietly, and they started to move toward the nearby transit office. The woman stood too, holding her coat tight around her belly. Her eyes stayed on Malik the whole time, filled with something that looked like guilt, or maybe something even deeper. Inside the office, things were quieter. The windows muffled the street noise, and the hum of an old vending machine filled the silence. They all sat, except for Agent Hill, who remained standing. The woman sat across from Malik, her hands resting on her stomach as if drawing strength from the new life growing inside her. My name's Claire, she said finally, her voice steadying. A long time ago, when I was in real trouble, your mom helped me. I didn't know her well, but what she did for me, it saved my life. She never asked for anything in return. She just helped. Malik watched her carefully. What kind of trouble? Claire shook her head. I can't talk about that yet. Not here. But I need you to trust that I'm not lying. I only just recognized you because of your last name and your eyes. You look like her. Agent Hill narrowed his eyes slightly. Why now? Why give him this note like that? In public. I didn't plan to, she admitted. I saw him help me. And it just hit me. It was like watching a piece of her again. I thought maybe it was a sign. Agent Hill crossed his arms. We don't believe in signs. We believe in facts. Evidence. Claire nodded. Then I'll give you that. I have something I've kept for years. It belonged to her. I didn't know how to find you before. I only recently started digging again. She paused, then looked at Malik. But the way you helped me today, that's what your mom would have done. And it gave me the courage to finally say something. Malik didn't know what to feel. Part of him wanted to believe her, to believe that there was more to his mom's story than just the quiet, tired woman he remembered. But another part of him was scared. What if it wasn't true? Or worse, what if it was? Before anything else could be said, Agent Hill's phone buzzed. He answered quickly, stepping away. Malik sat in silence, his thoughts racing. Claire looked down, breathing deeply. And then she whispered something under her breath. I think someone's still looking for me. Malik turned sharply toward her. What? She looked up at him, her eyes wide. I've been getting followed. For weeks. I didn't think they knew who I was, but if they saw me hand you that note. She didn't finish the sentence. Agent Hill returned, his expression unreadable. We need to go, he said, his tone shifting. Now. Malik looked at him. What's going on? His father glanced at the door, then at Claire. There's a black van parked outside. Unmarked. It showed up right after we walked in. The room fell silent again. And outside, through the frosted glass, shadows began to move. Malik could feel the chill crawling up his spine. He looked out the window, trying to make out the shape of the van through the frost. It was parked just far enough to avoid suspicion, but close enough to watch. The engine was still running. No one had stepped out, but the tension in the room tightened like a knot being pulled tighter with every second that passed. Agent Hill stayed near the door, his eyes fixed on the glass. They're not just watching, he muttered. They're waiting. Claire gripped the edge of the table. I told you, she said, her voice trembling. Someone's been tracking me. I started getting strange phone calls a few weeks ago. Then I noticed the same car behind me more than once. I thought maybe I was being paranoid, but now. Agent Hill cut in. You should have reported it. I didn't know who to trust, she replied, her voice cracking a little. And if they knew I was talking to the bureau. Malik glanced between them, still trying to make sense of everything. Who are they? He asked. Why would anyone be following you? Because of my mom? Claire hesitated. She reached into her coat slowly, pulled out a worn wallet, and opened a small hidden pocket. Inside was a photograph, old, faded at the edges. She handed it to Malik. This was taken the night your mom helped me, she said. I never forgot her face. Malik looked at the picture. His mother stood next to a much younger Claire, their arms linked, both smiling nervously. It didn't look like a planned photo, more like something captured in a rush. But it was her, his mom. And she looked different, stronger, focused, like she was in the middle of something serious. Agent Hill took the photo, examined it closely, and frowned. This wasn't just a random act of kindness, he said. She was working with someone. Claire nodded. There was a man. He was involved in something big, corporate fraud, international accounts, things I didn't understand back then. But he had dirt on powerful people. I got caught up with him. And your mom, she helped get me out. Malik stared at her, confused. So what happened to him? That man. Claire shook her head. I don't know. He disappeared. Vanished. No one ever found out what happened to him. But I always believed those same people who were after him are still out there. And they never forgot. Agent Hill paced, thinking out loud now. If your mother was connected to someone involved in something that high level and you were a witness, it would explain why you're being watched now. Especially if they think you have something. I don't, Claire said quickly. At least, not anything dangerous. Just memories. A few old things he left behind. Some names. Some photos. I didn't even look at them for years. But after I found out I was pregnant, I wanted to make peace with my past. I started going through it again. That's when it started. Malik leaned forward. Why didn't my dad know about this? Agent Hill paused, then looked at his son. Your mother didn't tell me everything. I always suspected there was more to her past. But we agreed not to talk about it. She said it was safer that way. I respected that. Claire looked up, guilt in her eyes. I should have come forward sooner. I didn't know how. But when I saw him, she motioned to Malik, and the way he helped me, just like she did, I couldn't walk away again. The sound of a door creaked outside the office, and everyone froze. Agent Hill stepped quietly toward the edge of the window. He peeked through the blinds. One of them's out of the van. He's walking around the building. Claire's face turned pale. We need to go. Now. Where? Malik asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Where can we even go? Someplace safe, Agent Hill replied. And somewhere quiet. I know a safe house. But we'll have to move smart. Claire hesitated. If they see me with you, it could escalate. Agent Hill pulled out his phone, dialing quickly. Then we move separately. I'll have backup pick you up from the east exit in 5. Malik comes with me. As he gave instructions, Malik turned toward Claire again. His mind was racing. None of this felt real. Just an hour ago, he was offering his seat to a stranger. Now, that simple act had pulled him into a storm he didn't understand. Why me? He asked, his voice almost a whisper. Claire looked at him, eyes glassy. Because you reminded me what courage looks like. And I owed your mom the truth. Whether you wanted it or not. The door clicked as Agent Hill ended the call. All right. Backup is en route. We move in 3 minutes. But before they could stand, Malik's phone buzzed. He glanced at it. An unknown number. He didn't answer. A few seconds later, a message popped up on the screen. Stop digging. Or the past won't be the only thing that gets buried. He showed it to his dad without a word. Agent Hill took one look and his jaw tightened. They know we're inside. Claire stared at the screen, her hands shaking. We're not dealing with street thugs, Agent Hill muttered. Whoever's behind this has resources. Surveillance. Maybe even someone on the inside. Malik's chest felt tight. His thoughts were spinning, but one thing was clear. The truth about his mother, about what she had done, wasn't buried after all. It was waiting. And now it was coming back, dragging him, his father, and a pregnant woman into something much bigger than any of them had expected. Outside, footsteps echoed again. Closer this time. No one in the room moved. Then the lights flickered. Once. Twice. And the door handle began to turn. The door handle turned slowly, so quietly that the sound barely registered, but inside the small office, every breath stopped. Malik's eyes locked on the knob, heart pounding so hard it felt like his chest might explode. Claire instinctively slid her hand over her belly, shielding it, while Agent Hill moved fast and silent to the side of the door, gun drawn but held low, not yet raised. The lights flickered again, buzzing faintly above them like a warning. Then the handle stopped. A second passed. 2. No one entered. Agent Hill motioned with his hand for Claire and Malik to stay low. He inched toward the door, pressed his ear against it. The hallway outside was dead silent. Too silent. No movement, no voices. Just the sound of Malik's shaky breath and the hum of the vending machine. Then came a different sound, something tapping the window, softly. 3 knocks. Malik turned his head fast. Through the sliver in the blinds, a figure stood by the glass, dressed in black, face partially covered. He didn't try to open the window. He didn't move. He just stood there, holding something up. It was a phone. And on its screen a photo of Claire, taken just minutes ago, in the terminal. Claire gasped. They're sending a message, she whispered. They want us to know how close they are. Agent Hill moved to the window, staying low, trying to see the angle of the figure's stance. But by the time he got a clear view, the man was gone. They're testing us, Hill said quietly. They're watching how we react, seeing if we'll panic. I already am, Claire admitted, her voice trembling. Malik turned to her. What do they want? If they already have photos, if they're tracking us, why haven't they just done something? Because they're looking for something, Hill answered. Something Claire has. Or something she knows. Claire swallowed hard, glancing down at her purse. I didn't think it mattered. But there's a flash drive. It was given to me a long time ago. I never even opened it. I thought it was dead weight. Maybe just insurance. I've been carrying it for years. Where is it now? Hill asked. Her face turned pale. In my apartment. In a box. I didn't bring it. Malik looked between the two of them, panic starting to creep into his throat. So, they're not just following us. They're waiting for us to lead them to it. Claire nodded slowly. They don't want attention. They want control. Quiet control. If something goes public, they lose. So they push just enough. Threaten. Corner. But they won't strike, not yet. Not unless they have to. Which means we still have time, Hill said. But not much. Suddenly, the emergency exit door at the far end of the hallway outside banged open. Heavy boots echoed off the tile floor. 2 pairs, maybe 3. Quick, organized steps. Not random. Trained. Agent Hill turned to Claire. Listen carefully. There's a service tunnel behind this office. It leads to the underground parking garage. It's old, not on any modern blueprint. We used it once during a training exercise. We're going out that way. Malik helped Claire to her feet as Agent Hill pulled open a hidden access panel in the back wall. Dust fell from the edges. Behind it, a narrow, dark corridor stretched forward like a passage from another time. Cold air rushed out, and the faint sound of dripping water echoed through the tunnel. As they entered, Hill reached back and pulled the panel shut. Just as it clicked back into place, the main office door burst open. They heard voices, low, firm, commanding. Then footsteps. Searching. Inside the tunnel, Malik reached out and took Claire's hand, guiding her through the dark. She was breathing fast but holding herself together. The air was heavy, thick with mildew and old secrets. As they moved, Claire began to speak again, quietly. I think there's something I never told anyone. Something your mom told me the night she helped me escape. Malik looked at her in the dim light. What was it? She said, Claire whispered, that the man I was running from wasn't the only target. That there was someone else involved. Someone bigger. She said she had proof. And that if anything ever happened to her, her husband would know where to look. Agent Hill stopped dead in his tracks. What did you just say? He asked. Claire repeated the words. Slowly. Clearly. Hill stepped back, thinking hard. She told me once, before she passed, that if something ever went wrong, I'd find answers in the old music box. I thought she meant it as comfort. I didn't even open it. Malik's eyes widened. We still have that box. In the attic. Hill turned. We need to get to the car. Now. But they weren't alone in the tunnel anymore. A shadow moved behind them. Malik turned sharply, hearing the soft scuff of a boot on concrete. Dad, he whispered. Agent Hill raised his weapon fast. Keep moving, he said to Claire and Malik. Don't stop. But Malik looked back. In the faint light, a figure stood at the far end of the tunnel, unmoving, watching. And then the figure stepped forward. Not with violence. Not rushing. But slowly. Calm. Like they had all the time in the world. Malik's skin prickled. Something about the figure felt familiar. Too familiar. Who is that? He asked, voice tight. Hill didn't answer. He was focused, weapon raised. But the voice that came from the shadows next chilled them all to the core. You were never supposed to find out, it said. It was a woman's voice. And somehow, it sounded almost like his mother. But that couldn't be possible. She was gone. Wasn't she? The sound of the voice echoed down the tunnel, cold and steady, as if it had been rehearsed 100 times. Malik froze, staring into the dark, trying to make sense of what he'd just heard. It couldn't be her. His mother was gone. He had been at the funeral. He had touched her hands when they were cold, had stood beside her casket as it was lowered into the ground. But the voice that was too close. Too real. Agent Hill didn't speak. His arm was stiff, gun pointed, but he hadn't moved an inch since the voice rang out. Claire was breathing hard behind Malik, one hand still resting on her belly, like She was trying to hold herself together. Malik turned slowly, heart pounding, and whispered, "Dad, what if it's her?" Hill's jaw clenched. "It's not. It can't be." But there was a crack in his voice. The figure in the tunnel stepped closer, still wrapped in shadow. The dim light caught just enough of her face to make Malik's stomach flip. The eyes. The way she tilted her head. The resemblance was uncanny, like looking at a ghost walking toward them. A ghost who hadn't aged a day. "You need to stop running," the voice said again. "They'll never let you go. Not unless you give them what they want." Agent Hill barked. "Who are you? Show yourself, now." The woman stopped. Silence followed. Then she reached into her coat slowly, cautiously, and pulled something out, a worn leather locket. She tossed it gently down the tunnel. It landed near Malik's feet with a soft thud. Malik bent to pick it up, hands trembling. As soon as he touched it, something inside him shifted. He knew this locket. He had seen it 1,000 times as a kid. It belonged to his mom. Inside, folded neatly, was a photo, a very old one, of his mom, smiling, holding him as a baby. The back had a handwritten note, "For when the truth comes for you." His chest tightened. He looked at his dad. Agent Hill's face had gone pale. Before they could ask another question, the woman turned and vanished into the tunnel, disappearing between shadows and walls like smoke. Hill bolted after her, but as he reached the curve in the tunnel, she was gone. The tunnel split there, one path to the garage, the other to the boiler rooms beneath the airport. Too many directions. No sign of her. "She's gone," he muttered. Malik stared at the empty corridor. Was that really her? "I don't know," Hill replied. "But if it wasn't, someone's gone to terrifying lengths to make us think it is." Claire stood silently behind them, shaken. "Maybe that's the point. To destabilize us. Make us doubt everything." But Malik wasn't convinced. Something deeper was at play now. Something beyond just a corporate cover-up or surveillance. The air in the tunnel felt different, like every secret they thought they had buried was beginning to surface at once. And the people pulling the strings knew far more than anyone had assumed. Suddenly, Hill's phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a threat. It was a private alert from a bureau channel. His clearance level only. He opened the file slowly, eyes scanning. His face turned to stone. "What is it?" Malik asked. Hill didn't answer right away. He just turned the phone to face them. On the screen was a decrypted message pulled from a dormant file in a protected database. One flagged years ago as unrelated, until now. It was from a covert source, never verified. But the subject line was loud and clear. Operation Echo. Subject believed deceased. May be active. Surveillance warranted. Do not engage until target retrieves package. Below that, a surveillance photo. Blurry. Dated just 4 months earlier. It looked like his mom. Or someone who had her face. Claire gasped. This isn't a coincidence." Malik stared at the screen. "Are you saying she faked her death?" "I'm saying," Agent Hill replied carefully, "there's a chance she never died. Or she didn't die the way we were told." Everything they knew was breaking apart piece by piece. The enemies in the van, the warning message, the shadowy woman in the tunnel. All of it was connected. But now, the stakes had jumped even higher. If Malik's mother had faked her death, or worse, had been forced to disappear as part of some covert operation, then they were dealing with something much bigger than revenge or blackmail. They were in the middle of something orchestrated. Something meant to be buried forever. And Malik, he was the thread that could unravel it all. A crackling voice suddenly came through Hill's radio. "Agent Hill, we've got movement near your vehicle. 2 individuals attempting to access the trunk. You need to exit immediately." He cursed under his breath. They found the car. Claire grabbed Malik's arm. "What do we do now?" Hill turned, eyes scanning the darkness ahead. "We stick to the plan. We make it to the safe house. And we open that music box." Malik clutched the locket tighter in his hand. "What if what's inside changes everything?" Hill looked him straight in the eye. "Then we deal with it. But no more hiding." They started moving again, faster now. But the echo of the woman's voice lingered in Malik's mind, growing louder with every step. You were never supposed to find out, and now that they had, there was no turning back. The garage was nearly empty, quiet except for the distant hum of a generator and the low buzz of fluorescent lights overhead. Agent Hill led the way, hand on his weapon, every step sharp with caution. Claire and Malik stayed close, hearts pounding as they moved toward the black SUV tucked behind a row of rusted maintenance vans. It looked untouched, but Hill knew better. Surveillance always came before contact. He scanned the surrounding area, eyes alert, body still tense from the encounter in the tunnel. He popped the trunk, just enough to check for trackers. One blinked faintly under the bumper, small, professional. He yanked it off and crushed it under his boot. "No more watching," he muttered. Claire climbed in first, settling back as best she could. Malik followed, sliding beside her in the back. Hill started the engine, but he didn't drive off right away. He pulled the old music box from the console, a small wooden thing, faded from years of sun, carved with roses and vines. "This hasn't been opened since she passed," he said quietly. Malik stared at it, the lump in his throat growing. "She said we'd find the answers there." Hill nodded once, then opened the box. The old tune began to play softly, the delicate chime echoing in the tense silence. Inside, where a tiny ballerina once spun, was now a small metal key taped to the base. Alongside it, folded neatly, was a note, handwritten, unmistakably in his mom's looping cursive. "For Thomas and Malik. If you're reading this, it means I couldn't tell you in person. Trust no one, not even inside the bureau. I found something they were hiding. Something about Project Sentinel. It wasn't just surveillance. It was experimentation. I took proof. They came for me. I had to disappear. I never stopped watching you both. I'm sorry." Hill's hand trembled slightly as he read the note aloud. Claire sat in stunned silence, lips parted, eyes wide. Malik just stared, the air knocked from his chest. She didn't die." "No," Hill said. "She ran. To protect us. And she was watching. The woman in the tunnel, it might have been her after all." Claire looked at the key. "Where does it lead?" Hill's gaze hardened. "There's only one place she ever kept secrets. The cabin." They drove for hours, leaving the city far behind. Twisting roads led them to a clearing deep in the woods. The old cabin stood still and weathered, its windows dark, the porch half collapsed from age. Malik had only been there once as a child, barely remembered it. But the air around it felt charged now, heavy with memories and truth waiting to be found. Hill unlocked the door and pushed it open slowly. Inside was quiet, filled with dust and forgotten time. He moved straight to the fireplace, where, behind the mantel, a small hidden panel was carved into the stone. He inserted the key. The lock clicked. Inside was a metal box. Hill opened it slowly. Papers. Photos. A flash drive. Government memos stamped classified. Images of subjects wired to machines. A letter with Malik's name on it. He picked it up, hands shaking, and read silently. His eyes filled with something Malik had never seen in his father before. Fear. "She didn't just run," Hill said finally. "She exposed them. And this flash drive, it proves everything. Project Sentinel wasn't just watching civilians. It was testing neuromodulation, brain manipulation. They tried it on veterans, on kids. And when your mother tried to stop it, they silenced her." Claire looked stunned. "Why you? Why your family?" "Because she worked on it. She was part of the original project until she realized what they were really doing." Malik's head spun. "So all of this, the cop mocking me, the woman on the train, the chase, it was never random." "No," Hill said. "It was all about keeping this buried." Suddenly, headlights lit the trees outside. A vehicle pulled up, dark, no plates. Hill's face changed. "They found us." He handed Malik the flash drive. "Listen to me. If anything happens to me, you get this to the press. The right people. This can't disappear again." The door slammed open. 3 men stormed in, armed, silent, cold. But before Hill could raise his weapon, a figure appeared behind them. A woman. She stepped into the light. Malik couldn't breathe. It was her, his mother. Older, paler, a scar across her cheek. But her eyes were the same. She didn't speak right away. She just looked at them, at Hill, at Malik, and then finally said, "I told you never to open the box unless you were ready." Hill stepped back. "We thought you were dead." "I had to be," she said. "They made it clear. If I didn't vanish, they'd kill you both." But I never stopped watching. The armed men didn't move. They weren't here to hurt her. They were with her. Claire's voice broke the silence. "Why come back now?" "Because they're going to release it," she said. "The final phase. The version that doesn't need wires. The one that works through signal. If we don't stop them now, it's over." Malik held out the flash drive. This is enough." She looked at him, sadness in her eyes. "It's a start, but it's only half the truth." "What's the other half?" he asked. She looked at him, then at Hill, and said something no one expected. "You were part of the trials, Malik. When you were a baby. That's why they've been following you. You're the only one who survived." Malik's heart stopped. He didn't speak. He couldn't. Everything went quiet. Outside, another car pulled up. But it didn't belong to the enemy. It was press. News vans. She smiled faintly. "I leaked it all an hour ago. We're not running anymore." The truth was out. But nothing would ever be the same again. For a moment, no one moved. The trees rustled outside, and the quiet hum of approaching media vans grew louder in the distance. Malik stood frozen in the middle of the cabin, the flash drive still in his hand, its weight now heavier than ever. Everything he thought he knew, his past, his mother's death, even his own childhood, had been flipped upside down in a matter of hours. The truth wasn't just shocking. It was personal. Deeply, painfully personal. His mother, Serena, took a slow step toward him. Her voice softened. "I wanted to tell you so many times. But every time I tried, someone got too close. I couldn't risk them finding you. You were just a baby when they used you in those trials. You were the only one who didn't suffer side effects. They called you a success. I called it inhumane." Malik's throat was tight. "So my whole life they've been watching me? Waiting for what? Some signal?" She nodded. "Your brain patterns, your reaction to frequency, it all became part of their next phase. They thought you were the key. That if they could replicate your resistance, they could roll it out on a larger scale. But they never managed to control you. And once I ran, they lost access." Agent Hill stood beside her now, his jaw clenched but his eyes softening. "Why didn't you tell me?" Serena looked at him for a long time. "Because I knew if I did, you'd come looking for me. And they would have followed. I left to keep both of you safe." Claire leaned on the cabin wall, her hand still resting protectively on her belly. "So this was all planned? The officer on the train, the van, the woman pretending to be you, everything?" Serena sighed. "They wanted to scare Malik. To force him into isolation, make him easier to monitor or extract. But I've been one step ahead of them this whole time. It was only a matter of time before they acted." Outside, the vans came to a stop. Journalists climbed out with cameras, unsure of what they were walking into. Malik saw a few familiar faces, people his dad had worked with at the bureau, now reporters, some who owed favors, some who still believed in the truth. This was it. The moment his mother had spent years preparing for. Agent Hill walked outside first. "I'll handle them. Let them know we'll give a statement. But we need a moment." As he disappeared into the light, Serena placed a hand on Malik's shoulder. "I'm sorry for everything. For missing birthdays. For not being there when you needed a mother most. But this moment, we're taking back everything they stole from us." Malik nodded slowly. "I believe you. I need time to process all this." "You will," she said gently. "But first, we have to finish it." Later that night, in a secure bureau office that Hill still had access to, they uploaded everything from the flash drive. The files contained research logs, video recordings of unauthorized tests, secret meeting transcripts, and the names of government officials and corporate scientists who had tried to bury it all. Hill had used his old clearance to ensure the files were transferred securely, directly to investigative journalists and whistleblower protection networks. Within hours, the news broke. Leaked documents reveal covert human experimentation program, government and tech ties under fire. The headline screamed, "Mother who faked death to protect son comes forward with evidence." Malik watched the news unfold in silence, his fingers gripping the armrest. Social media exploded. Public outrage surged. Lawsuits were filed. Investigations reopened. Politicians denied involvement. But Serena had already prepared detailed timelines connecting dates, documents, and names. There was no escaping the truth now. Claire sat beside him, a hand on his. "You did it." "We all did," he replied. The next few days passed in a blur. Serena turned herself in, not because she had committed a crime, but because she wanted full immunity to testify. The Bureau granted her temporary protection under whistleblower status. Malik was asked to give a statement too, especially as someone named in the files. He spoke carefully, honestly, and humanly. Just a boy who had given up his seat on a train, not knowing it would spiral into this. And that moment, his quiet, kind gesture became a symbol. News outlets replayed it over and over. Black teen gives seat to pregnant white woman, uncovers massive government cover-up in unexpected twist. The clip of him being mocked on the train by the officer was also part of the narrative. But instead of fueling hate, it sparked unity. People talked about dignity, about doing the right thing when no one is watching, about how something small could lead to something massive. The cop from the train was suspended pending investigation. But the real change came when people started asking bigger questions about how vulnerable communities were often targeted for experimentation and why certain stories only surfaced when they reached someone's breaking point. Malik never asked for any of this. He never wanted the spotlight. But now that the truth was out, he knew there was no going back. And maybe that was okay. 1 week later, Serena stood quietly at the edge of a park, watching Malik from a distance. She wasn't allowed to live freely yet, not until the hearings were over. But for now, she could see her son again, in the open, in peace. Claire was on a bench nearby, rubbing her belly with a gentle smile. Malik waved at his mom, and she waved back. They didn't need words. Everything had changed, but the most important thing remained: family. And in the middle of a world full of secrets, lies, and danger, one boy's small act of kindness had unraveled a web of silence. He hadn't known it then, but the moment he gave up his seat, he wasn't just helping a stranger. He was stepping into a story far bigger than himself. And somehow, despite everything, he helped rewrite the ending.